Hey there, my name is Alex Bryjack, and we are so glad that you are tuning in to Mission Church. We hope that this helps you in your journey in finding and following Christ. We would love to see you right here at 82 Stratford Drive on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m., 10:30, or 12 p.m. But for today, let's dive into this message.
I want to start today with this question. Here's the question: what do you yearn for? What do you yearn for? Yearn, it's a word, maybe you don't use it a lot, but it's a word that means you have this deep desire for it. And the truth is, you yearn for a lot of different things, as do I. This time of year, we yearn for a lot of different things. Apple cider donuts. Some of us have I have a deep yearning for that. Some of you have a new yearning for the iPhone 15. Some of you, this is what you're yearning for. Others of you, you're parents of little kids, you just have a yearning for a nap. Like if you could just have a nap, that's certainly what you yearn for. But I want you to think about, in the deepest places of your heart, what do you yearn for? In the deepest places of your spirit, what do you yearn for? And here's why I'm asking. One of my favorite quotes is this: if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, get this, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. If you want to build a ship, I don't want to build a ship, but what I yearn for is the same thing that God yearns for, and it's the same thing that so many of us in this church yearn for, and that is to see this church and the church deployed out on mission to serve people. We believe that church starts on Monday, and this is what I'm yearning for. This is what so many of you are yearning for, that we would be a dangerous church again, that we would push back darkness in the name of Jesus, that we would discover the greatest adventure of a lifetime is joining Jesus on his mission. This is what I am yearning for. And my prayer today over the course of these next 30 minutes is that there would be an increase in our desire, in our yearning to be deployed as ministers of reconciliation. Our prayer team is praying now that there would be an increase in this kind of yearning to make heaven more crowded, to love neighbors, an increase in students yearning to light up their schools with the love of Jesus. Can you imagine? An increase in college students and young professionals yearning to see other young adults discover their true identity. That it's far beyond the sport they play or the degree that they're getting, but that they could be sons and daughters of God. Yearning for those in the second half of their life to finish their race of faith. God has more for you in the second half of your life than just golf and cars. And I love when you invite me to play golf. Keep doing that. But God has more. And this is what I'm praying for, that his Spirit would move powerfully today, that an increase in yearning would happen. And so I'm not going to give you orders to go missionally. I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to order you to go missionally. Instead, I want us to learn from a story from Mark chapter 4 that just might cause you to yearn for the vast and endless sea of being saved through Jesus and sent by Jesus to change the world. If you have a Bible, open up to Mark chapter 4. Mark is the second book of your New Testament. It's one of my favorites because it's short and it's action-packed. Mark chapter 4. We're going to start in Mark chapter 4, and then we'll get to Mark chapter 5. If you're there in Mark chapter 4, it says this in verse 35. That day when evening came, he said, Jesus, to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." And it says this, leaving the crowd, say it with me, leaving the. And I highlighted that for you just to kind of make a mental note. We'll come back to that in about 25 minutes. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. I want us to begin today, as we're concluding this teaching series called Let's Go, I want us to begin by seeing what Jesus said to his disciples. Jesus said, let us, say it with me, let us go. Paraphrase, let's go. Jesus is God in the flesh. And so, of course, he says to his disciples, let's go. Long before TB12 and Hertz, God came up with this. He's been saying this since the very beginning. We've been looking at story after story from Abraham all the way today to the disciples and Jesus when he said to them, let's go. He's the God of go. He's the Lord of let's go. And he's inviting them to say, there is work for us to do. There's miracles for us to experience. Let's go. And I wasn't there, but I can imagine in that moment them kind of being excited. Maybe there was a look on their face. They were like, oh, okay, let's go. And then Jesus says where they're going to go. And this is when it got real quiet. Jesus said, let us go over to, say it with me, the crickets, meaning quiet. They're leaning forward. They're saying to one another, did he just say? No. There's no chance he just said. They're like, no, I'm pretty sure he just. Why in the world would we be going to the other side, they're thinking? That's not our side. No, we like our side. In fact, the Jews, the disciples in this moment, their worldview is bifurcated into these two areas, our side versus the other side. And so let's kind of crawl into their worldview just for a second to understand how significant it is that Jesus said, we're going to go to the other side. They loved their side, the Jews, the disciples. They understood their side. They did. They even liked, and were starting to like, doing ministry on their side. They even liked a lot of the people on their side. Not only that, get this, there was momentum on their side. I mean, Jesus was doing all kinds of stuff, and they're like, hey, this is great. We're following the rabbi, Jesus of Nazareth, and things are happening on our side. Now, maybe it's just me, but if I'm them in the boat, I'm saying, guys, like it's working on our side. Why do we need to mess around with the other side when we got plenty to do here on our side? Besides, I like our side. I'm familiar with our side. I know all the restaurants on our side. I understand the people on our side. And when it comes to the other side, they were thinking, it's scary. It's dark. We're unfamiliar with it. We've even been told by people in our growing up years to never even go over to the other side. This was used as a way of parenting. If you don't behave, I'm going to take you to the other side. I'm sure some parents said in the first century. And yet, Jesus said other words like this in John chapter 3. For God so loved their side. Wait, hold on. No, let me reread that. Let me try it again. For God so loved, say with me, that he gave his one and only son and that includes people on every side. Whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save through him. The disciples were thinking our side. Jesus was thinking his world. And man, guys, I can relate, can't you, to how the disciples were thinking? He's asking these questions. Guys, your side or my world? Your people or all people who have all been made in the image of God? Your comfort or my cause? Pastor Mark Buchanan, awesome author, he wrote this book, Your God is Too Safe. And that grabbed my attention because we live in a world preoccupied with safety. He says this, that's a whole nother sermon. He says this, God's main business, check this out, is not making you comfortable or safe. It is without question in making you holy. The God who calls us out of the boat of self-preservation, the God who longs to shake us out of our drowsy indifference is the God who is full of both grace and truth. And so Jesus, the God of go, he says, let's go. Guys, it's time to go. And we're going to go to a place that you don't want to go. But in that place and on the other side, you're about to experience and see some things you're never going to forget. Let's go to the other side. And so go ahead and flip the page to Mark chapter 5. I want to read you the first 20 verses. I'm going to try to get through this fairly quickly. I'm going to read these, and then I'm going to make a few observations. And it says this in verse 1. So they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. Everyone say Gerasenes. That's how you pronounce that, the Gerasenes. And this region on the other side, real quick fun fact, it was referred to as the Decapolis. Say the Decapolis. The Decapolis. This is the original 10. True story, the 10, okay? 10 cities, pagan cities, not Jewish at all. This was the other side. This is why they didn't want to go to the other side. It was the 10. Like it's, no thanks. We'd rather stay on our side, of course. And so they went across the lake to the 10, their Decapolis, where Jesus got out of the boat. Check this out. A man with an impure spirit from the tombs. This is the welcoming party. And they're like, see, told you. This is why we should have stayed on our side. It gets worse. The man lived in tombs, and no one, everyone say no one. Yeah, no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one, say no one. No one was strong enough, on the other side, to subdue him. What is the look on the disciples' face in this moment? I think most of them are still in the boat. They're like, nope, see? Like they're starting to paddle back to their side. Wow. It says when he saw Jesus, when he saw him from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees. This person, this guy, is the least unlikely person on planet Earth to join Jesus, to surrender to Jesus. He's the guy that everyone had given up on, except for one person. And when he saw Jesus, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He says, "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. And it says this, a large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us." This guy was demon-possessed. This isn't a sermon on demonology. That's for another day. But he was demon-possessed. And the demons, they begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs. Allow us to go into them." He gave them permission. I love that because he's all-powerful. Jesus gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out of them and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank and into the lake and were drowned. This is a really difficult passage for PETA. I'm going to keep moving. This is tough. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been, everyone say had been, had been possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there dressed and in his right mind. I think he's just like this, like smiling. They're like, wait, what? They were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people and what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told them about the pigs as well. Then, this is so interesting, that the people began to plead with Jesus to leave because he is polarizing, because light is polarizing. They're like, please leave. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Of course, who doesn't want to be in Jesus' small group? I'm sure the curriculum's great. I can't even imagine the snacks. And if we run out, he's just going to multiply them. Like, who doesn't want to be? But check this out. This is so interesting. Jesus didn't let him. No. He says, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. How great is this story? 3 observations. Here's the first one. Write this down. The mission is opposed by Satan, but overcome by Jesus. There's so many people in this church that are on mission with Jesus. You've been saved, and you've been sent, and you are going to the other side of your street, of your dorm room, of your team, of your workplace. You are. And what you have noticed is that there is opposition. There is. There always has been, and there will be for a little bit longer. The mission is opposed by Satan, but isn't this good news? It's overcome by Jesus. This part, and you're wondering, like, how do we understand the whole pig thing, herd thing? Well, I believe this is a foreshadowing of what is to come in full to Satan and all that work for him. 2,000 in number rushed down the steep bank of the lake and were drowned. That day is coming. And you will experience on mission victory. You will experience on mission Jesus' power showing up for you, giving you what you need in just the right moment. Many of you are perhaps today discouraged. You are on mission. You are fulfilling the Great Commission in and through your life where God has placed you. You know that. And yet you're discouraged. The amount of times that I feel discouraged would probably surprise you. Some of you feel defeated. Some of you feel like you're wasting your time, and I value time probably too much to a degree. The feeling of wasting time for me is like one of the worst. I don't do well with that. Anybody else kind of built like me in that way? Yeah. And there are many times where you will feel as though you're wasting your time with that person, with those people. And so we feel all these different things when we're on mission, and I just want you to know that Satan is opposing not only the church, not only the bride of Christ, he's opposing you, especially when you go on mission to the other side. The mission is opposed by Satan, but overcome by Jesus. Here's observation number two. Observation number two. This part I want to riff on for a little bit. This is easy to miss, but so important for your missiology as you begin to really develop a biblical missiology of what it looks like in 2023 to live as Christians. Number two, let's go. Let's go. Sometimes means you stay. And so we do a teaching series like this, and so many of you are like, that's it, Pastor, I'm leaving the workplace. I'm putting in my 2 weeks. I'm coming to work at Mission. I'm like, well, hold on a second. Maybe. Or maybe let's go means you stay. Teachers ready to leave the public sector. God has deployed you to bring light as a teacher in the public schools. You're like, let's go. I'm out. I'm done. I want to go work at Mission, or I want to go work. No, hold on a second. It could mean that. College students that are ready to change their major, and you might need to change your major. I would love to see so many of you college students go into ministry. I would love that. I really would. And I mean ministry by full-time ministry, but we're all called to ministry. Maybe you actually are meant to keep that education degree or business degree to go on mission. So sometimes we need to understand let's go sometimes means you stay. This guy who had been wonderfully delivered, whose life is being changed in chapter 5, he wants to go back with Jesus and the disciples to their side. Of course he does. Who doesn't want to get on the boat with Jesus? Who doesn't want to walk some miles with Jesus? Who doesn't want to stay really close to the guy that just delivered him? And yet Jesus, in such a brilliant and strategic move, says, nope. Doesn't that feel like anti-Christian almost? Some of you with a deep feeling like, oh, that's not nice. Jesus, let him come. He's been a follower of Jesus for 30 seconds, and you're already he hasn't even had the Alpha course yet. He definitely hasn't gone through partner. Jesus, come on. Give him a year. Okay? Give him a year, let him get on the boat, let him see some stuff on your side, and then you can send him back. That's how you and I think. But Jesus had a different vision. Isn't this interesting? He said, listen, your story is going to be enough. Yeah. Your story is going to be enough. Tell them how much. Tell them. You're going to have to open your mouth. You're going to have to speak. Tell them how much. Tell them how much you've studied the core doctrines of the faith. Doesn't say that, and there's a place for that. I recommend understanding the core doctrines of our faith, but he doesn't say that. Tell them how much the Lord has done for you. That'll be enough. Yep, that'll suffice. Your experience of Jesus is greater than your education about Jesus. Now, I believe in being educated about the things of God. I spoke at Moody last week. I'm about that too. But especially those of you who are new in your faith, and there's a ton in this church, it is so easy to move to this place, this kind of thinking that I just got to know more, then I'll go. If I understand more, if I can really explain why I've landed on Arminianism, or if I can really explain how I landed on Calvinism, then I'll go. If I can really break down the core doctrines of the faith, then I'll be sent. This is how we think. And yet, Jesus is like, Nope. Just tell them your story. That'll get it done. Tell them your story. And this is what he does. He wants to get into Jesus' small group, and instead, Jesus gives him a bigger vision. He says, go and reach your city. Because these guys in the boat, they're not going to. It's going to be your story among your people who know who you used to be. That's going to get it done. And this is what he does. He shares his story. This is one of the important things that you will learn in the planter course. For you to discern and understand where you already have influence. It's so important for you to know this. For you to keep going to places where people already know your story. Think about it. Of all the places that we could have planted Mission Church 12 years ago, where did Tommy and I plant Mission Church? Right here where we grew up, because I knew when people see Tommy and who he is now, they're going to be like, oh my gosh. All right, keep moving. For reals. All right, number 3. Oh, I love this one. So remember I had you about 20 minutes ago keep in your mind the crowd part. So on their side, there was multitudes, there was crowds, momentum, scale, like all kinds of people. What's up, buddy? I mean, you're out a little early, but you can just do whatever you want to do over there. No, seriously, do some journey. Do you got any journey in there? So there we go. All right, now I can start preaching. And yet we see Jesus leave the crowd, the masses, to go after how many? Now this really moves me, and this really moves us, because so many of us in this room, we identify as the one that Jesus left heaven and earth to come and rescue, yes? We identify with that story. That he left heaven to come to earth, to our side, to rescue us. Here's observation number 3. Do for one what you'd like to do for everyone. And God begins to give you a new heart. He removes your heart of stone and gives you a heart of flesh, and he sends you on mission. And you get so fired up because you want to see so many people encounter Jesus Christ that if you're not careful, you will try to give yourself to the masses. And I want to encourage you not to do that. What if we were to do as Jesus did here and as he spoke of in other places, to really focus on one? To do for one what you'd like to do for everyone. How liberating, how freeing to see that in Decapolis, a movement of Jesus began with one. It only takes one. And I believe to my core there is one person in your life. There is one person, they might even live with you. There's one person on your team. There's one person on your street. There's one person in the place that you work or the school that you work. There is one person God has deployed you to see and love and serve and listen into the kingdom of God. We're going to do for one what we'd like to do for everyone. So here's our application today, and then I'll be done. Everyone, name one. And it even rhymes a little bit. Everyone, name one. Say that with me. Everyone, name one. Right now, everyone in this room, just in your mind right now, I want you to name one person. This is how movements happen. Everyone name one. Who is that one person? 2 weeks ago, I spent time with one of our missional communities. Me, Dan, and Tommy, we had dinner with them, and these 3 guys that lead this missional community, I'm not going to share their names, they asked me not to. They went on to list over 7 names of people that they are praying for on a regular basis, that they are serving on a weekly basis, that do not know Jesus. 7 names. There's probably closer to 8 or 9. And I'm sitting around the dinner table listening to this, feeling so inspired and convicted at the same time. Many names they had. How many names do you have? I'm not asking you to pick 7 or 8. How many am I asking you to pick? 1. Everyone. Name one. That's when this whole let's go vision changes, because it becomes personal. Everyone name one. And so this is how I want to close in prayer. I want to close that God would do something in our hearts, that he'd put that name on your heart. And perhaps that name is someone you gave up on last month or last year. I don't know. But that God would put that name on your heart as we close. 107 of you have yet to join and register the Growth Track, and the Growth Track train is leaving the station tomorrow. I want you to be on it. I'd love for you to be on it. You're going to get more equipping in everything that I'm talking about today, especially in the planter course. But everyone name one. We've got the music being played over you right now. I could even pull down the lights if I need to. Do you need some haze? We could get some haze going. I don't know. What do you want me to do? You want me to sing? I could sing. I can't juggle or do magic tricks, but that you would yearn for the vast and endless sea of being saved through Jesus and being sent by Jesus to change the world. I dream of that. I dream of it. That would become increasingly true of this place, that we would yearn for it. And it starts with one. Our prayer team will be down in the front, and so Tony and others on our prayer team, if you guys would make your way to the front, and perhaps today you would receive prayer just to say, hey, would you pray that God would break my heart, that he'd give me more passion to do everything that the pastor was just talking about. Or perhaps you come to the prayer team because you know that name, you say, hey, here's the name. Would you pray with me for that name? For others that are feeling discouraged, and I know what that feels like, maybe you just need to be prayed for, to be encouraged, to stay on mission. Receive prayer today. Everyone, name one. That's our application. 9 a.m., go ahead and stand to your feet. Let me pray to close us. God, thank you for this incredible story that's real. Jesus, we thank you for who you are. You're the God that crosses over, moves over, goes beyond, doing anything and everything to rescue the one. That's who you are. And you've invited us to follow suit. Your word tells us to live as Jesus lived. Holy Spirit, would you inspire us? Would you cause an increase of yearning for these things? God, I thank you for this amazing group of people. I thank you for those that you're speaking to around the Growth Track. In advance, I thank you for what you'll do over the next 8 weeks on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. And God, I thank you in advance for the stories we're going to have when we see that one bend their knee in surrender and submission to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Here we are, send us. This is our prayer. We love you. And all God's people agreed and said, we'll see you next week. We are Mission.
Hey there, thank you so much for checking out Mission Church. We are praying that this message helps you in your journey to find and follow Christ. As always, make sure to subscribe so you can see our upcoming messages. And until next time, we are Mission.